Welcome to today's video. Today we're talking about perfect airflow on the saxophone. This video is for you if you keep having trouble with your airflow. Your sound isn't stable. The piece keeps getting chopped up. Not all registers respond equally well. Some notes keep popping out, and it just doesn't sound the way you want it to. I've been teaching saxophone since 2006. That's 18 years now. And what I want to share with you today is the one thing I've actually told all my students over these 18 years, again and again. All the students who paid attention to this have improved. Yes, all the students who focused on this managed to get their airflow under control. What is it? Are you ready? Connect instead of attacking. What I mean by that? Very often, our tongue gets in the way because the tongue is naturally there to stop the sound and start it again, right? So in a way, it structures our sound. Yeah. So it divides things up. We can use it to articulate, to start different notes in different ways. But the thing is, in order to get a good sound, to get a good flow when playing, we first need to focus on our airflow. Yeah, we need to get better at controlling the air. Really get better at directing the air into the instrument. But very often, no matter which saxophone method you use or open up, after just 5 or 6 pages, the tongue comes into play, right? And then it immediately says, now we're going to articulate the notes. And I can understand that because, of course, it's easier when you're dealing with eighth notes or quarter notes in these method books to have a clear division like ta, ta, tat, tat, tat. So there is definitely a reason for that. But the big problem with that, in my view, is that it disrupts the flow of sound. That is, you end up breaking up the flow of sound a bit too early. That might sound a bit provocative now, and of course it doesn't apply to everyone, but I know many people who, when it comes to tonguing on the saxophone, still have recurring problems with articulation. And that's why my remedy is connect the notes instead of tonguing them, right? The technical term for connecting notes is playing legato. You might have heard of it before. So whatever you're playing, scales, etudes, little pieces, try to connect the notes as much as possible at first. So everything under one slur. You play by blowing air into the instrument and moving your fingers. Now, of course, it can happen that notes repeat. In that case, you can very, very gently articulate them with your tongue. Yes, really just very, very softly. But try, when you do that, to really stay in the flow of playing and connect everything at first. Why is that so good? First of all, as I just mentioned, you learn to develop a sense of flow in your playing. You learn to put air into the instrument. With wind instruments, air is the elixir of life. When I play a string instrument, I have my bow. This bow only depends on how long I can draw it, right? At some point, of course, I reach the end, but then I can go back again. With our air, at some point I have to breathe, That makes things a bit more complicated. Still, you can train this too, and especially by practicing your breath control, you can manage to ration your air better. So you really train yourself to simply have more air. You break up your pieces less. You get more into the flow of playing. You learn to play fairly evenly across all registers. So whether you're playing low or high, you stay in the same flow. You don't have your tongue interfering, articulating, or attacking the notes, but instead you stay in the same flow, whether you're playing at the very top, in the middle, or way down low. You learn to deliberately change the airflow while playing, yes. Sometimes using more air, sometimes less, producing differences in volume and tone color. You learn to play longer musical phrases, yes. Very often, that's an issue for people who haven't been playing for long, that the musical phrases come out a bit choppy, and that, well, it just takes a bit of time at first until you realize that a piece is actually connected and that there aren't supposed to be pauses along the way. Maybe that's the case for you, yeah. And if you stick with playing, you'll naturally have much more flow, especially when you play legato and keep the air going into the instrument the whole time. Of course, you also learn to play more evenly, right? Because you don't have that interruption from the tongue at first. Instead, you can really just focus on your fingers and your breath control, and this big element, the tongue, is left out for now, which increases your chances of playing more regularly right from the start. And it's a natural way to play a wind instrument, yeah. What does natural way mean? You inherently possess this natural and unobstructed airflow, and there is absolutely no disruptive or interfering chopping up of this smooth and continuous airflow whatsoever by the action of the tongue. Please don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to badmouth articulation here, and it all has its justification, and it's also important on the saxophone, and of course, it kind of depends on what you need it for. If you're practicing for a big band or a funk band, or somewhere it really has to pop and be nailed, then of course that's a whole different story. I come from classical music. I played music for 6 years with a music studio contract, and a friend of mine, she was a bassoonist, greetings to Mannheim, and I learned a lot from her. We always practiced next to each other, not in the same room, but usually in rooms next to each other, or back then in our apartment. And there I was able to listen in on a lot, or I also attended many of her music lessons, as they were called back then, at the university, and saw how the classical woodwind players approach this topic, you know? That's actually exactly how we, as more classical saxophonists, should be doing it too. That brings me to a topic: how you can approach this articulation, meaning the attacks. Once you have this good airflow, then you can imagine having a ribbon of air, right? The air is like a ribbon, and the tongue strikes on this ribbon. So you're striking on the air. Maybe you've heard this before, striking on the air. Very often I hear in lessons, and then the connection, the context, the musical line is gone. But if you strike on the air, even if you play briefly, of course, then you're really just creating the illusion that you're striking on the air, because naturally there are gaps in between. But once you begin to play broad, sustained, and long notes, and basically strike them with your tongue on the air, creating a clear and distinct sound, and then proceed to play with your tongue, like, for example, starting very softly and gradually getting much harder and more forceful, then you can truly begin to notice these subtle yet significant differences in articulation and the way the sound is produced. And if you practice that, I recommend doing it with scales, with etudes, then your articulation will also become nicely organic, as people like to say. So then it won't sound choppy, but instead it will be connected with the airflow. It's a synergy with the way you guide your breath. You can't see those things as separate from each other. If I just use my tongue, I might get some kind of effect, but it has nothing to do with the piece itself. It all has to work together. How do I guide the air, and how does the tongue interact with that airflow? All right, that's it for today. If you have any questions, requests, suggestions, praise, or criticism, feel free to leave a comment below. I read everything. I try to answer everything as quickly as possible. It always helps me move forward. I want to help you, so feedback is always worth its weight in gold. If this video helped you or you enjoyed it, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I've recorded 2 online courses, and I'll link them for you below the video. One is about practicing saxophone with a metronome, and the other is about strategies to help you sight read music much better on your saxophone. You'll find the links in the description below. Just click on the pages and take a look at everything. You'll see exactly what each lesson is about. And if it's something for you, I'd be happy if you decide to sign up for the course or for one of the courses. As I mentioned in the last video, I'm planning to start a group, a community on the platform school. For that, I need 20 saxophonists, ambitious, enthusiastic saxophonists who are interested in exchanging ideas, learning together, and discussing all saxophone-related topics as a group. To give you a better idea of what this group will look like, I'll link a newsletter for you below the video. You can take another look there to see exactly what will be happening in this group. And if you're interested or want more information, feel free to send me an email at saxophone.academy@gmail.com. Participation in this group costs €5 per month, and you can cancel monthly, so the risk is really minimal. There will also be a worksheet for today's video. This worksheet, and it will be the same with future worksheets you'll get in my school group, okay? So if you decide to join this group, you'll also get this extra material there in the future, along with a few surprises. Stay tuned. That's it for today. I wish you a great week and see you very soon. Bye.